I remember my first day because on my first day, the General Pants office burnt down. Hi, thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, just I guess to touch on the first thing. So, yeah, the company's unrivaled at the moment. We're actually rebranding in probably a couple of weeks now. So for the new year, doing the same. Well, sorry, I guess recruiting the same kind of things, but doing it a little bit differently. The company's going to be called, or is called now, Etisk, Etisk. Etisk is actually Swedish for ethical, so kind of gives you a view to how we approach things. Also, just thought it looked like a cool name. Wanted something a bit more kind of modern sounding, a bit more unrivaled. Just, I don't know, it's been 2 years, and I think after the first month, it just kind of started to grate on me whenever I used to say it.
It's a funny thing that, isn't it? Is when you start your logo, your name, anything about your company at the start, and then 3 months later, you want to change everything about it. I've been chatting to a lot of people going out on their own at the minute. I think one of the things that you can do at the start is spend too much time on a website, the name, and you spend it for 6 months trying to
Definitely.
get everything perfect. And then, a couple of months later, you want to change everything about it. What was the main driver? Was it just the name, or you, as you say, a month in you wanted to change? Was there anything else driving that?
No, I think, look, you're right in what you're saying. I spent, I don't know if it is just a me thing, or I think it is just generally a people thing. Spend so much time worrying about things that don't really matter. And even though you hear the advice about, don't worry about the website or this or that, it's just about, just start speaking to people, start trying to pick up clients, pick up roles, and don't even worry about an ATS. Just use LinkedIn Recruiter. These things will fall into place. And I do kind of get that. I think, look, I think I've had two different ATS, right, for over the past 2 years. I had Job Adder and then Loxo, and I barely used either properly. It's kind of like, it's just, I just lived in LinkedIn Recruiter. So these things that, and even like the website, it's like, well, look, the SEO's fine. People aren't really searching a name. It's all about kind of LinkedIn, my visibility on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, candidates and clients. I'm not sure how many people have even looked at the website. So it's these things that you think really do matter. And I guess they matter from as you're saying, that you speak to a lot of people that are set up on their own, and this is going to only happen more and more. We're kind of sort of jumping about here, I'm sure now, but I do think you need a certain amount of kind of credibility. And I think, having the website, having all the processes and everything set up, it helps that, but it's not something to be kind of fixated on, or something to delay you in just getting going. I think sometimes it can be a reason to, there's no point reaching out or cold calling now. There's no point trying to pick up clients. I haven't got an ATS, I haven't got a website. What happens if they want to look at a website? They're going to think I'm a joke. I think sometimes they're kind of reasons you're making up in your head just not to go out and start doing it. So as much as it's one of those things, it's important, not urgent, I'd say, when you do start. But
I actually love the whole process too. It is exciting when you're coming up with a name and the website, but as you say, there's not if a company's going to hire, they're not Googling, right, okay, let me go and look at a few websites and go that way. It's normally people ringing them, as you say, they've got a bit of credibility, they're putting out valuable content, and you can more of attraction, and you build your networks as you go as well. Great start, jump straight into it. We haven't even we're kind of a bit there, but look, just even from yourself, do you want to give us a bit of an insight into your journey? I was looking today, and I think it's about 20 years to the month, if I'm right, that you've been in
yeah,
recruitment.
yeah, December 2004. I remember it. I started. I think I started the week before Christmas, or a couple of weeks before Christmas. It's a business called Fashion and Retail Personnel. So I guess you'd call it a boutique recruitment business. We were maybe 25 people in London. We had a small Nottingham office as well, 5 to 10 people up there. Yeah, fashion and retail recruitment. So I started off on the non-fashion desk as a resourcer, working with a guy called Robin, working with accounts like Tesco and Argos at the time. I think like Habitat, Heels, those kind of homewares, and some of the grocery retailers as well, and then moved into fashion. But yeah, I've always worked in retail and fashion recruitment, head office kind of stuff. I was there for, I don't know, a good 4 or 5 years. I kind of, do you know what? I put that all together. I think I was in agency maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe 7 years, and I went to another agency, but not for a long time. Then I came back, and then went to another agency, and again not for a long time, and then sort of moved in house. So that was kind of, when I think back on my agency experience, it was kind of there, although I spent a couple of stints at other agencies. But what I did was open my eyes to how good I had it at this business, because it wasn't, especially back then, you think of recruitment businesses as being really kind of KPI driven, really kind of, make this many cold calls. I even speak to people now that are like, they used to work for businesses where you weren't allowed to sit down in the morning until you'd made like 20 cold calls. It's like, yeah, I never worked in that environment, never would. That would kill me. But look, it's a good grounding, I think, in recruitment generally. I think whether you want to go in-house or stay in agency, starting in agency is never a bad thing. I think it teaches you, don't get me wrong, it can teach you bad habits, but I think generally it's good. It teaches you kind of speed, tenacity, just getting on the phone, speaking to people, not kind of, kind of sitting behind a computer too much in regard to kind of just sending off messages. And that still stands true today. That's actually a point of difference today, is just picking up the phone. But yeah, I was in-house till about 2011, 12. Yeah, then I went to House of Fraser, which is probably my first, I'd say that's my first proper big role. I was heading up the resourcing team there for all of head office. So about 600 people, covered everything from buying, merchandising to digital, customer, tech, IT, finance. So covered everything. So I was doing hands-on recruiting as well as managing a team. We've fluctuated between, I think, sort of 5 and 7. And then, yeah, look, I knew I was going to move to Australia. It was always on the cards. My wife is Australian, so she kind of had me over a barrel. It's like, yep, if we want to have kids, I want to be in Australia. I want to be with my family, and my mum and mum's a doctor, so it's kind of like, yeah, I knew it was going to happen. So I started doing a bit of contracting. So I went to ASOS, 3-month contract, again, ended up staying there just over a year. That was a real kind of baptism of fire with them. First time I've ever worked for a business that was kind of just, even though it was established, it was scaling so much. I think in the area that I looked after, which was about 1,300 people in that area that my team recruited for, you might have 300 or 400 positions that were kind of replacement positions. But then again, you'd have 300 positions that were new positions each year as well. So you'd look at kind of planning where they would fit in, which quarter. So having those sort of conversations was something I hadn't had before. Yeah, that was great. Then I worked for a media company until I took the move over here. So moved over in 2019. Had a few months off before landing a role in the October for General Pants. I remember my first day, because on my first day the General Pants office burnt down. So I got a call from my manager at like 7 a.m. thinking, what's going on? Have they changed their mind? Does he not want me to? And he goes, you can't really come into the office today. I was like, oh, okay, why? It's burnt down. And what happened, I think there's a tyre factory behind it that had caught on fire, and the fire spread. So that first week was just going around stores, meeting a couple of people, and finally did start, but then was only there about 5-6 months because we went into COVID, didn't we, in the March, April of 2020. So lost my job, and that's when I started working for myself. So I started, and that's when I started using LinkedIn a lot more as well. I mean, it's funny, the other day I was looking at I was just a bit bored, I think. I was looking at old LinkedIn posts, and I thought, I wonder how far back they go, and kind of pre-2020. It's just all reposting the company pages or reposting like something a colleague had put. So boring. You just didn't really think of it as a personal branding tool. But then in 2020, I started doing a bit of career coaching, because I thought, well, I started to sit on LinkedIn a bit more, and you started to notice these things of, all these career coaches or people giving recruitment advice. You'd look at their profile and think, wait a minute, you've never worked a day in recruitment in your life, and you're telling people what an ATS does. You're telling people what recruiters are looking for, what your CV should look like, and you think you're talking a load of shit. It's just, it's you're wrong, basically. So I thought, do you know what? There must be a kind of gap in the market here for somebody who's come from, quite a bit of recruitment experience across different areas, different industries, different roles, to help just help people. Difficult time, a lot of people out of work. So yeah, trying to help people kind of, how to write a good CV, optimize your LinkedIn profile, being a big one to get found by recruiters. Because again, unless you sit in the back end of LinkedIn Recruiter searching for people, you don't know how recruiters search or how you're going to get found. So, yeah, started off a business doing that. And that's when I started becoming a lot more active on LinkedIn, giving a lot of advice to job seekers. Did it for about a year or so, and it was just a business I didn't want to scale. I loved working for myself, but I didn't enjoy the act of writing CVs or helping people with their LinkedIn profile. It was a bit boring, to be honest with you. So it's kind of, and I've done a couple of short-term contracts in between that. Fantastic Furniture. I did a 3-4 month contract there, and I never thought I'd go back into agency, and I still probably never would. But running my own agency is different. For me, it's kind of, I get to do things how I believe they should be done. It's not as easy changing things, and we'll probably come on to this when we talk about sort of contingency recruitment, but it's not as easy making that change. I thought it'd be easier, as much as I'm really happy with how the business has done over the past 2 years. We've done well in year one. Year two's been better than year one as well. It's been tough. The economy's been tough the last couple of years. So I can't, I've proved to myself I can do it. Next step now is kind of, how do I grow and scale this business? And doing it on a contingent model is difficult. It is difficult. And I think picking up new clients, a very saturated market, but trying to get new clients is difficult as well. It's more difficult than I thought. I thought my kind of experience would speak for itself, but most of the time people just see you as another pesky recruiter. Oh God, another recruiter. God, another one trying to work with us. I haven't got the relationships in the industry as in kind of with clients like I would have in the UK. Look, I spent, 16 years in the UK recruiting. I look at LinkedIn now and there's people that I remember placing as, kind of buyer's assistants on 16 COOs or GMs or, buying directors. And it's like, you just think, oh, if I was in the UK, I could, really utilize these relationships that I had kind of spent so much time doing. So that's difficult. But look, the act of recruiting, especially in Australia compared to the UK, the act of recruiting, taking people through a process, getting people engaged in a role, excited about a role, sourcing, how you source on LinkedIn Recruit is the same in Australia as it would be in the UK. So that makes no difference. Finding people is the same. But yeah, having those kind of client relationships has been something I've really had to work on. So look, the next step with me with a new business is really kind of just changing that model of how we recruit, trying to help people and help companies, I think, understand you don't always have to pay massive fees on a contingent, pound delivering model. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to go to multiple agencies. Some people will listen, some people won't. So it's going to be, be interesting to say the least.
It's a mad topic. Like, as you say, it's nearly the model's kind of like broken for contingent recruitment, and especially if they're going to multiple agencies. Do you think that the problem is with the recruiter or the education of the companies? Like, starting out your first routine projects, or when you're pitching this and you've got like your own business, where's the problem lie? And what would you say to somebody that's maybe wanting to push into that, like, where get away from the contingency, getting away from spending 3 weeks looking for a role, and then that somebody else has filled it and you haven't got a proper brief and it gets messy? Is there any advice you give to people that are maybe starting that journey, or even not on that journey, because you can always improve on it?
Yeah. Look, and there's no easy answer. I think where your first question to where does that kind of blame sit? I guess it's not. I wouldn't say it's blame. It's. I think it's both sides. I think too many recruiters are happy to sit in that contingent model with multi-agency and just play a numbers game. Maybe less experienced recruiters or recruiters working for businesses that promote that. And look, if you work with 20, if you're working on 20 roles at a time, odds would say you're probably going to fill 4 or 5 of them. You fill 4 or 5 of them a month, you're probably doing all right. Where's the general kind of, you're doing so much work for nothing. It's all about speed. It's kind of, a race to the bottom, as they say. I'm sure everyone would love knowing that if you work in a role, you're going to get paid for what you do. You're going to get paid for that role regardless, have it exclusively or have it retained. Everybody would surely want that. But the thing is, look, I always believe, and people might disagree, but recruitment fees are so high because of the risk, I think. So the recruiter holds the risk. So even if I work in a role exclusively, there's still a lot that can go wrong. There could be somebody internally suddenly employed. There could be somebody who gets referred by somebody else in the business. They could just change their mind. They could say, look, we're not recruiting this role anymore. And I could have put in 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months of work on that. And that's something you just accept, for some reason, you just accept that as a recruiter. So therefore the fees are generally, quite high to I guess, sort of counteract that risk. So you would normally have higher fees for, a multi-agency. If you worked with a company multi-agency, lower fees for contingent, for exclusive. And what always kind of confused me was why fees were so high for retained work. So don't get me wrong, I guess most of retained work tends to be in that kind of exec space. So they, it's you put in a lot of work, and the search can take a long time. But for me, my thought is, how do you make things even cheaper? I want to make it cheaper for my clients, but having a guaranteed income stream. Because again, I'm probably jumping all over the place here, but this is just what my mind does. I think, what other industry is there that people work for nothing? You wouldn't, like, when I need to do my taxes, I don't go to 3 accountants and say, right, here's everything for the year. Whoever saves me the most money, I'm going to pay. The other 2, I'm not going to pay you. They'd say, I'm pretty sure, I know what they'd say. They'd probably, tell me something off. But so why is it why is it as recruiters that we accept this? We accept it that, we might not get paid for the work that we're doing. So my view is, how can you try and introduce a model that encourage, that still, I guess, shows a value in recruitment, but allows you to kind of, because again, even if you're working on an exclusive basis and it's pay on delivery, it's contingent, are you ever completely impartial? You're not, because when you're working with that business, whether it be the HR manager, the hiring manager, the CEO, the GM, whoever it is you're working with, you still just want them to hire your person as quickly as possible, really, because, you want to move on to the next thing, you want to make money. Also, what could go wrong. Then, something might happen. They might find somebody themselves, referred, put the role on hold. So you're still going to kind of, if you're 50-50 about a candidate, you're still going to kind of say, "I'll just see them," or, you still, even if it's conscious or subconscious, you've got a vested interest here. So you're going to push that candidate. Whereas what I'm looking to do, and I've already got 2 or 3 clients looking to sign up at the moment, is just make it a low cost flat fee monthly. So you sign up for a year contract for $5,000 a month. You can get unlimited recruitment, as much as you need, whether that's 5 positions 1 month and none the next month. And there's probably a lot of people out there that think I'm completely stupid. I'm about to do it with a client that spent over 100,000 with me last year. And it means on this model, $5,000 a month for unlimited recruitment, it cost them 60. But the fact of the matter is that this client paid maybe 130 in recruitment fees last year, because there's one role that they used a different agency for. So this model is going to more than half their agency spend compared to last year, and roughly the year before that as well. But give them that knowledge, because again, the hardest thing when I was in house, the hardest thing I would always find the hardest to kind of manage was that recruitment budget. You'd have the budget set out for the year, but because they're finance saying, "Oh, you're going to use that budget, you're going to use that, you're going to use this recruitment budget for next month or the month or the quarter after." I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to use that recruitment budget or agency budget, I should say, when I say recruitment budget, because I don't know who's going to leave. I don't know who's going to leave next quarter or in Q3 or Q4. The GM could leave, or there could be no one, or it could be just sort of junior people. You just don't know. So it gives businesses, I guess, a chance to really plan, know that our recruitment this year is going to cost us $60,000. That's all it's going to cost. For me, okay, I might not, in the long run, there could have been more money I could have made there, but I've got predictable income now over the year, which is probably the hardest thing to get in recruitment on that normal contingent model, is knowing how much you're going to make a year. So you suddenly get, 3 or 4 clients on that. You get 4 clients on that, and then you've suddenly got $240,000 that's planned, that's coming in over the year. And then you can work on contingent stuff as well, because there will be clients that you work with that just don't want to do that model. They don't see the value in that model. Maybe they think they're only going to have 2 or 3 roles in that year, so there's no point in doing it, or they're just against paying upfront for recruitment because they're just used to this payment and pay on delivery, or it's a bigger company and they don't want to change, whatever it may be. So I just think, just try, if I was starting again 2 years ago, I would just try and do something a bit different. But you can't turn your nose up at work when you start. There are people that are saying be selective, don't work on a multi-agency basis. Well, sometimes you have to, because to form those relationships with businesses, you have to show them how you operate. You can't just go in there and say, "Right, I want this role exclusive, give it to me," when they work with other agencies or another agency. Sometimes you do just have to form those relationships. So look, you will work, I've worked on stuff multi-agency. Let's do something I'm working on multi-agency now because it's a new client, but my plan is to get them on this, this monthly payment model, or at least work with them exclusively. If after 3 to 6 months, they're still looking to do it multi-agency, then I probably wouldn't. So, I'm not a snob when it comes to, working on things on multi-agency. Sometimes it needs to be done. And also, when I was in house, I was part of the problem. When I was at House of Fraser, especially because we used agency a bit, I'd give it to 2 or 3 agencies when I went to market. Sometimes I'd do it exclusive if the agency asked, and if I felt that generous, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, go on then." But even then, and I was, I had like 14, 13 years experience then, and I was part of the problem. So look, I don't blame companies for doing it, because unless you kind of really sit down and think about the pros and cons of a model like that, then you're just going to do what you've done in the past. You're just going to keep doing it. So yeah, it's nobody's kind of fault, I don't think. I just think you need to work hard at trying to help people understand the pros of going into a different model if it suits them. Like I said, if the business is only going to recruit 2 or 3 positions, then it might not suit them. I've only proposed this to businesses that I honestly and truly believe it's the best thing for me and for them.
And has your in-house experience helped you come up with this, because you can see the value of it? You mentioned there's some people you would give exclusivity with. Going out on your own, did that change your kind of thought process on this? Or when you were in-house, would you have entertained this as well?
Yeah, look, and that's the thing. When I was in-house, would I have entertained it? I might not have done. I really might not have done. But did I work for businesses that it would have been right for? No. House of Fraser, ASOS, even maybe General Pounds. But I wasn't there really long enough. But those businesses probably wouldn't have been there. But then again, this model might not be right for businesses that have an in-house talent acquisition team. because they don't normally have to go out to agency that much, or they don't want to, they're going to be targeted against really going out to agency for the most part. So are you going to give them a model where, they're almost admitting defeat before anything happens, really to an extent? So it wouldn't have been right for those businesses. But I think my in-house experience has made me want to work this model because I miss being part of a business. I see this being kind of, working for these businesses, and I'm trying not to say their names because, they haven't quite signed up yet, and it's probably not something to kind of say, but I see myself kind of, I want, having their email addresses. So, but actually almost, like being that almost like a remote embedded option where, you're always on, you're always turned on. So, if there's something they need me for on a Tuesday, and just give me a call, we can work on that. I'm on to speak to them for 2 weeks, but you have, quarterly check or monthly check-ins regardless. But I miss that kind of working strategically, really going out there with the client name as well. So going out there saying, oh, we're partnering with X business. This is why they're great. Look at some of this, look at this, rather than it always being cloak and dagger messaging people. Are you interested in a role where, is paying this much, can't tell you who it's with unless you jump on a call with me? Because a lot of the time it's because, and you see these horror stories. I saw one the other day where an agency had reached out to a candidate saying, I've got a role, you see the back and forth. I've got a role that's paying, 140,000. I go, oh, who's it with? Oh, this business. Oh, okay, thanks. And they follow it up at this business, and this person, had gone off and just applied directly and basically said, yeah, I did it on purpose because I've got a better chance if I apply directly, because they're not going to want to pay an agency fee, are they? And also you don't want other agencies to know what you're working on, because again, if I've got something exclusively, I'm not stupid. I know that if another agency finds out I'm working with this client on this really, really good role, if they happen to spec somebody in who's absolutely brilliant to like the hiring manager, is there a chance that they would take on that candidate? Of course there is. There's always a chance. At the end of the day, the business is going to want to get the best person in possible. That can happen, and I've seen it happen before. So it kind of takes out all that risk as well. It's like, yeah, I'm going to shout from the rooftops about the people I'm working with because they're paying me this. If they're going to look at a resume through you, then, well, they're not going to, because they've got this partnership with me. But if they want to do that and go off and pay an agency to, well, they can still do that if they want to, but they'd be a bit silly to. But, it's more like you're that in-house partner, and they just say, look, we don't use agencies. We're going to, put it to our, our in-house partner and just send that person straight through to me. It's kind of, you don't have to worry about all of that. You can be a lot more open about what you're recruiting for. And this comes back to, Etisk being, it's being ethical. I want to be open, it's about being open with candidates, with clients. This recruitment's a little bit, it can be a little bit in the shadows sometimes, I think, just due to the nature of it. And look, like I said, I'm not preaching here, because I am working at the moment with a business and it's multi-agency. And I reached out to somebody today, and this is what I hate. And I've been trying to get hold of this person for like 2 weeks or so, very on and off. And I just said, look, let me just send you some details about this role, because every time I call, you can't answer. And send them over this information about the business. And they're like, oh yeah, I've already had 3 recruiters reach out to me about this. And you're like, do you know what? This makes me look like a really crappy agency. I'm just one, we're all the same. Every agency's got it. And also, what does it say about the employer? That's the thing. It makes people think, wait a minute, why have 3 agencies called me about this role? They must be desperate. They must be finding it really hard to find somebody. Why is that? Is the culture rubbish, or is this role bad? How long is this role? And this picture builds up over time, and you do this for role after role after role, year after year. It's no coincidence that the businesses that use this multi-agency approach are normally the businesses that people have heard dodgy things about, or not dodgy, sorry, that's wrong, but question. They've normally heard things about the culture there or the business. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it kind of builds this image of this seems a bit weird. Why are so many people calling me about this? It seems a bit of a mess. It's not a great candidate experience here as well. So yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, I completely agree. I found once I switched to more, maybe not so much the model that you're talking about, but for years I would have worked for the same company. So then you can also reduce some of the costs, because the culture, the sell, the people in there. You've got direct contact with everyone, so you can move things around. You're not waiting for people to come back to you. And when you really build up that trust and credibility, and you also, I don't know about you, maybe I'm speaking for myself, I'm sure you are, but you get a bit of sense of pride when you're building these teams and they stick together, and you look at the 5 years later and they're still there, and you're going, well, somebody might have floated in the perfect person, but they could have come in and been that bad apple in the pie, and spoiled everything. So when you have somebody like yourself that is looking more at the business and building the team, and you're not trying to like grab all the cash just straight away, it's more about, right, well, let's do this over 12 months. And looking you can also then review after the 12 months and go, this is the team, this is the churn rate, this is what they've achieved, this is what you've saved, and that becomes more of a story where it does seem a bit more of a, not to use the word partnership, but it's not just here's the CV, I'm away again, I'm going to chase the next one. You're in there and you're like, I find sometimes in them relationships as well, you become an advisor as well to maybe the hire manager or the CTO, the founder, whatever it is, because you've got that trust that you've placed 5 or 6 people in their team. They all know you. You're the third party that they can come back and say something to if something's not right. So you kind of really strengthen that depth of the partnership, and that you become that trusted advisor, and it just makes life so much more easy.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. The conversation I had literally yesterday with one of these businesses that's looking to do this partnership, and the only reason it's $5,000, by the way, is that because I thought I didn't want to put limits on the amount of vacancy. I was $5,000 a month, but you can only hire this many people over the year, because I wanted to make it kind of like, look, you can hire as many people as you want. That's the whole point in this. There's no minimum or maximum. So what I've done is kind of split it up by size of business. So if you're a business of up to 80 people, it's $5,000 a month. 200 people, it's $10,000 a month. And there's also, like, for larger businesses, $20,000 plus a month, which is probably something down the line, but it's an offering that's there. So this suits them, and they're the businesses I love working with. What I love about Australia is there's loads of these kind of small but growing e-commerce businesses, and retail business, but mainly e-com focused businesses, like, and I'm just going to name people off the top of my head. And these are not people I'm saying I'm working with. I'm trying not to name these, but people like your sort of Baby Boo, Muscle Nation, there's loads more. Those sort of businesses that are kind of, rapidly growing, and they might be businesses that are hiring, 5 to 10 people across the year, or maybe even 15, but they haven't got an in-house function. They rarely even have in-house HR, because of their size. And they're the businesses I love working with, because, like you say, I can, I love that. I love that partnership bit. I love that strategic bit, and really feel like I can help and advise them. And I think with my background, I actually feel like I can add value. I've worked in house, and even this conversation, like, I'll come back to that, I was having yesterday, because we were talking about this model, and because I'm currently working on a role as well for them, which is on a contingent model exclusively. And we're kind of saying, well, how does it, do we still do that, or does this roll into this sort of thing? And I'm like, well, this is potentially a 30k fee here. I don't know if I really just wanted to roll into this, but anyway, that's another story. But so you're saying, oh, maybe we should look at it. Maybe there's maybe sort of 4 or 5 people we want to hire before the end of the financial year, which is what, June, isn't it? So he said, oh, let's maybe finish this off for like the next couple of months and then start on those roles. And I was like, well, look, if there's 5 roles you want to recruit for, and you want them to start before, or be offered before June, then you've got to think about it. You don't want to get them all in within the same month. Really, you're a small business. How are you going to manage kind of on 5 people all within May or March or June? It's going to be difficult. And also just the sort of interviewing as well. If it's going to be the same 2 or 3 people interviewing across the business, again, you don't want this all happening at the same time. Interviewing people for 4 or 5 different roles all at the same time is going to get messy. So really, you want to start now, because we want to sort of focus on 1 in January, 1 in February, 1 in March, 1 in April, 1 in May, sort of stagger it a bit like that. So, and then, they hopefully, in an ideal world, they're going to start in June. So it's just being able to kind of help them see just simple planning, and kind of taking things into account, looking at how long a recruitment process takes, and just, this is simple, but people often look past it. It's going to take at least 4 weeks really from kind of, starting working on a job to offer. You normally think about 4 weeks, don't you? Because a week or 2 is sourcing, a week or 2 is sourcing, but after that first week, you might start to line up interviews whilst you're still sourcing. It all overlaps, doesn't it? 4 weeks is pretty good. I think 6 weeks was always at the target when I was in house. I remember at House of Fraser, again, going back to them, we had a 6-week time to hire, and time to hire was offer, not start date, because obviously you can't control a notice period. So anything 6 weeks or under is always good. So I think, sort of 4 weeks. So you've got 4 weeks and then 4 weeks notice. That's 2 months, isn't it? So you're always on a 2-month sort of backlog before you even start working on a role, but until somebody's going to start. So yeah, I think I can't remember the question that we started talking to this about, but
You said something there actually that literally proves the point. So if you are working, say they've got 5 roles, you become the business consultant, then you're not going, okay, let's do all 5 because I need the cash and I can move on to the next one.
exactly. Or you think they might change their mind. They might not want to use Five, or they might give, another agency might, they might give those to another agency, or this. Exactly. You can actually sit down and think what's best for this business, or, what's best, all around. What's going to be the best way to approach it. You can come from a completely, neutral almost point of view. You're not thinking, what's best for me? I need to make this money as soon as possible. No, it's what's best for the business. Because again, look, I feel like I've jumped all over the place here, but I think because it's a new idea, I kind of try and, because again, once I build the business, and this, this is my vehicle to building my business, to hiring people for this business. Because the hardest thing over the last couple of years there's been points when I've sort of said to my wife, I really think I should hire somebody. But it's like, well, how much money do you need in the bank? How many roles do you need? Because it's chicken and egg. It's always chicken and egg. It's kind of like, well, I don't want too many roles to work on at once because I'm not going to be able to do them justice. But you can't have this limited number of roles like you're working on and then hire somebody because then you haven't got enough to, then do you just throw them into a cold desk or a warm desk? How do I know this client's going to still work with me next month or the month after? And, with that contingent recruitment or that payment on, pay on delivery recruitment sort of mindset, it's just that the future's so hard to predict. But with this, you suddenly get, 3 or 4 people doing this and you think, well, okay, I can hire somebody because then I can work on 2. And I know that's sort of, I know I've got this guaranteed income now for the next 12 years, I wish 12 months. Yeah. And then you think, okay, I can build it up now. So I've now got a model where for every 2 clients or 3 clients that come onto this model, that warrants another consultant coming in who can then look after those, but then work on maybe 20 or 30% contingent as well, maybe as long as it's an exclusive basis. Helps you helps you kind of plan and grow that. Again, I've forgotten what we said before.
Again, it's just perfect. Like, to give you a bit of insight, I made like that exact problem mistake. There was all contingent, just set up. It was the boom. Like, there was so much work. Do you take it on? Do you not? Do you turn it away? Do you hire somebody and then the market turns and then you're stuck? Like, you can't know what the future brings. But if you have people locked in, say 5, 6, 3 locked in for 12 months, you've got them locked in. Do you know what I mean? It is a contract, and then you've got that forecasting, and you can make that in plans. But it also, I think, what the beauty of what you just said really highlights it. Like, sales is building trust, and recruitment is better sales. Like, but it's kind of when you're looking at the business and what's best for the business, not your commission, and I could call it commission breath. When you're like, you've got somebody, you're just trying to place it. It's more about, well, actually, what does the business need? And being able to be that advisor to stage this out. And as you say, you're risking you're kind of, they might not want to work with you again, but the fact that you're already starting off the relationship with going, actually, you don't want to do that. It's like, it's like going into the shop and somebody saying, don't buy that one. This one's a bit cheaper here, but it's far quality. And you'll always respect that from, that person that you go into. You probably go back and then you're with them for 12 years maybe. So moving beyond that, you said you wanted to, you're thinking about maybe, do I hire? Do I not? You've had 2 different ATS over the time. Do you see any kind of technology coming in to help you in terms of managing it? Have you started looking into some technology? Where are you at with that? Are you kind of more get on the phone, get in front of them, or do you see that there's a place to maybe like move a bit more nimble than hiring and going through all the pain and stuff?
Yeah, I think that I'm very good at talking a good game. Look, I know you need to get on the phone, but it's the hardest part of the job. I'm very much somebody who would rather kind of work on my personal brand and reach out to people on LinkedIn and leave a voice note and then do all of this sort of stuff. So look, with technology, I think we're at this sort of stage now where I think there's so much tech, isn't there, on the market now? There's so much tech that's AI enabled, which is really good, but I think we're at risk of getting an overload from it. There's so many options of so many different things. You could easily end up with 10 different subscriptions to 10 different products and looking at your outgoings and thinking, wow, I'm spending a lot here on an ATS, on on this, on that. There's so many different things that can do that, and then there's all these encompassing tools, and then it can get overwhelming. I think especially for sort of small businesses, I think there's a lot there that can really help you. Like, sort of even just ChatGPT has just been an absolute lifesaver, just kind of giving you that basis of, helping you write an outreach message. Just put, even just put like I hate typing, so I just use it on my phone and I talk into it and go, right, I want an outreach message. This is a job. This is roughly what I want it to say, and it'll put it together for me. So it's kind of almost, yeah, it just saves so much time like that. Or just candidate profiles. So I'll use I'll use a note taker, a transcriber, and then just load it up into Chat GPT. And I've set my rules. This is how I talk. This is what I do. This is what a profile looks like. And then I'll give it some prompts saying, look, here's a transcript below. Attached is their resume, job description. Go 60% off the transcript. Go, the other 40% off the resume, and use a resume to kind of give you, if you're unsure of a company name and stuff like that. And he just puts together this 2 to 3 paragraph profile on a candidate. That's brilliant. Yeah, you've got to check it, of course, and you'll change bits and pieces. But something that would have been me scribbling down notes on a phone call, and then trying to put that into, so it saves you like 20 minutes per candidate easily, and makes your life a whole lot easier. So there's tools like that have been absolute lifesavers. So yeah, I think that sort of top of funnel, I think it's going to really help AI. I just think we have to be careful not to, we're still dealing with people here, so I think there's still got to be the right amount of kind of in person, not in person, but sort of people to people contact also. So I think I think using AI, using tech to, I guess, just make things make things quicker for you, make things easier, that you can put things together for you quicker. But I just think you can become over reliant on it. I see a day where it could be, everyone's just out there on let's just say LinkedIn, but any sort of system, and you just automatically match to jobs, and you're put through a process without even know you're being put through a process. And then suddenly you can be put at a final stage when you're kind of just meeting with somebody for the first time. And it's weird, this futuristic world where people are just, you're instantly matched to a job because it knows so much about you and your experience, and there's so much about the company. The algorithms are so perfect that you don't even go through a process. It's kind of like, no, Russell, you do this because you're suited to this company, that job suited to you. That you could see that happening in some weird world sort of 20 years from now.
Yeah. I always look at it going when apps come out. So there was an app for that. Apple went in that big, there's an app for that. There's an app for that. And I feel like if you look at your phone, you probably have 30, 40, 50 apps. And like it can be like daunting and fearful. And it's like the internet coming around, computers coming around, it's going to take our jobs. I genuinely see it like, yes, this is a bit different, but there's an AI for that. There's an AI for that. And then what will happen is it'll start to be like more ingrained into the technology. So it's not so much, there's all these different things. There'll be integrations, and I think they were in that like hype cycle at the top of it. But once we start to, there'll be something else, like, the quantum computing starting to be talked about now. And then, we move on, and then we're all using these like tools. But what really surprises me when I'm doing some of the demos and stuff is that people that are coming into, say, maybe the first year or two, and they're a bit younger than maybe ourselves, but they've just grown up with so much that it becomes like it's natural for them. Whereas like when we were probably the last generation that didn't have phones at school, and when you got that first mobile phone, it was like, oh my God, we can ring somebody, and when we're away from the house, or you can send text messages, and this all became so new to us. So I do think there's a bit of that in it, but again, yeah, I do believe, as you say, when the algorithms keep getting better, it'll create jobs, but there is definitely going to be a big shift there, in my opinion. But just a bit on, we mentioned about personal branding a few times, and obviously the top voice. Well, how did you go about that? What was the deciding factor maybe to do it? Maybe it is like yourself and me, like I don't like doing cold calls all day every day. I think it's much easier to put a post up and hit your target audience 4 times or 5 times more impact. Was there anything that pushed you into it, and what's that journey been like?
Yeah, look, like I said, so I started posting, I guess, value. Yeah, I guess what I call valuable content in 2020. And it was just aiming, at first, it was just aimed at job seekers to kind of help them understand things. And then it was, so it all went hand in hand with, okay, this is good for business as well. So, it's good for, because, the more that you can show, your knowledge, and the more stuff you share for free, the more people are going to trust you and use you from that career coaching kind of point of view. So that's where it really started. But I just started to enjoy doing it. And the top voice thing is there's no rhyme or reason to these top voices are there. Look, that I don't think there's anything special about me or any other top voice compared to other people at all. Where it started with me, I believe, was I in 2020, and it still goes around now, but it seemed to kind of really come about in 2020, where lots of people were talking about applicant tracking systems and how they automatically reject your CV. A recruiter's not going to see it. 75% of CVs are rejected without anybody looking at it, and these real kind of scare tactics for job seekers. And then often they'd be, oh, but come and get my service. I've got an ATS proof. What is an ATS proof CV or an ATS? It's just use a Word doc or a PDF. I mean, for God's sake, it loads up. People are going to see it. That sort of stuff really started to frustrate me, and you sort of feel like you're hitting your head up against a brick wall because you'd post about it, or like you get involved in conversations, and it was kind of, you felt like just one voice in sea of kind of just nonsense, really. So I thought, what, I'm going to go away and do a survey. I'm going to reach out to as many recruiters as I possibly can across agency and in-house, across Australia, the US, the UK, Europe, Middle East, kind of those sort of comparable markets. And when I say sort of Middle East, sort of Dubai and stuff like that, I reached out to a few people from there. And I think I ended up getting maybe 1,000 or so responses to my survey, which is about, what ATS do you use? And I listed the main ones, and then they could freehand in, people use like all the main ones. I think there was like 22 in total that people use. So firstly, there's not just one ATS, there's lots of different ATS. And they just asked various questions about, does it allow you to upload your CV in Word or in PDF or this or that? And ultimately, disproving that people, I think it was like 0.5% of people said it does reject people without them reading it. But I personally put that down to people not understanding the question I had on there about killer questions. Now, that is a time when you will get rejected without somebody looking at your application, is that if they have those yes and no questions, do you have the right to work in Australia? Yes or no? If you put no, that's obviously set up in a way to then reject you because they need somebody who's got the right to work in Australia. Maybe they can't sponsor, who knows? So I did that, and LinkedIn, one of the LinkedIn editors picked it up. They saw it and they said, I'm so glad you've done this. I've heard a lot about people talking about applicant tracking systems and what they actually do. Can we feature it in one of our articles? And I just got friendly with them from that. I think it was then the end of that year, and this is before you got this little special blue badge now, which is really impressive. But they just did like the yearly ones, like top voices for that year, for these different industries. And I made the list, and I think it was because of that. And then just consistently then keeping up that content after that just meant I kind of maintained it. And then I did a few different videos for LinkedIn on different subjects. They invited me, or their kind of sort of digital agency I went to, and did a few videos for LinkedIn as well on different subjects. And you just sort of get to know the editors over there a little bit. And I think they sort of highlight these people for top voices who put out, I guess, consistent content that isn't salesy. You're not trying to make stuff, you're not trying to just point people back to your service or your business. And then they know they can kind of, I think they then tend to use these for articles that they do. They say, they're talking about this topic, and they encourage you to talk about the topics that they want to talk about as well. So it might be like, can you, we're concentrating on this when it comes to careers this week or this month. And then, if you talk along that sort of lines as well, or do a post on that, they will then probably tend to use it in their thing. So it's almost like, it feels like they're kind of extended network of people they feel they can trust to, I guess, weigh in on the subject or use, your content for things that they want to talk about as well. That's what it kind of feels like. But look, the first time it happened, I was really, really proud about it, because it was, I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, put a lot of time and effort into it for probably little return. It might be good for a personal branding, but I honestly don't think, I can't really say, this business or that business or this business I've got has come from it. I don't think it has. There's, maybe there's a world where I've had some of these conversations and some of the clients I work with just haven't said it, but have kind of maybe seen some of it. I don't really think that is the case. I do it because I quite like it as a creative outlet. I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy trying to give a little bit of value, because it's mainly aimed at job seekers, which essentially is not really going to get me business, because job seekers, I can find job seekers really. Like, I can use LinkedIn Recruiter to advertise a role, or source my data in a database or use my network to find candidates for my job. So I don't really need to do it to get candidates to kind of, come to me. I do it because I like helping candidates.
I'll counteract that a bit. Like, I think if you're showing, you're helping candidates, if you can help people like that and you can attract candidates, if you're a client, say a hiring manager looking for people, and when you go onto your page, it does bring credibility. Maybe then might not come directly from it, but if you had a choice between yourself and somebody else that maybe doesn't have that presence and, maybe not giving back or doing anything, like your videos are very natural, very, they're very easy to listen to. They're very informative, and this is definitely not my natural state. I started doing these things to try and overcome a lot of this stuff. But when your videos are very much, you get into the point and you're away again, and it's not, as you say, like trying to sell something or do something like that. So when people see that, they get a bit of you. They understand you a bit more. They see that, you're not always just trying to get for yourself. You're giving back, and that does attract better candidates to you. So then, in theory, the clients should have better, talent coming through you as well. Well, that's
maybe,
what I see.
Maybe. Look, I don't think it does any harm, does it? Look, I do think it'd be nice to probably give a bit more of a focus to, I guess, general problems that businesses have with hiring. I think that would help. I think that would probably go a little bit further in terms of kind of getting those kinds of people engaged more in my content. But look, you sort of start. To be honest with you, look, everyone has imposter syndrome, and it's a lot easier for me to talk to job seekers because I feel that I come from a real place of kind of knowledge. And I was going to say authority, that's probably the wrong word. I think knowledge of, I know a lot more than the average job seeker about what happens in recruitment. Now, do I know a lot more than the average hiring manager or business about how they should be recruiting? I probably do, but I probably have more imposter syndrome when it comes to that, especially when you look at people out there talking about talent acquisition and, a lot of the in-house guys I see in Australia, but a lot of the ones in the UK as well. And I think, shit, man, they're so good, so knowledgeable. So, I'm so impressed by so many people. And then you sort of start thinking, shit, I know nothing. Look at these guys and what they know. And but then, that's just your imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's kind of, you sort of think, oh, but no, you know that as well. And when you are working in-house, you do have a different mindset on these in-house tools and tech for in-house, sort of in-house tech, in-house talent acquisition tech, I should say, because it's not really stuff that's, I'm running a business here essentially. It is a recruitment agency, but I've got and I like hats, of course, but I've got like a business owner's hat, and then I've got a recruitment agency hat, but then I've also got this in-house hat I still like to wear because I do believe there's a real gap in the market or a service that I would like to give that is an agency that is in-house. And look, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I know there's RPO. I know there's lots of businesses, especially within the sort of tech scale-up industries. And I know some of them personally who are great, who do like an embedded model. But I still personally believe that's expensive. They might charge 10 or 15,000, 10 or 50,000 just to be there a month for like a couple of days a week. They might only we only charge you 10% per vacancy. And I'll be honest with you, I want to, my goal is to make recruitment, I just want to change the way people view recruitment. And that ultimately comes down to everyone getting a great service. So whether that's a client or a candidate, and by candidate, that's anybody who, sort of touches the agency or applies to the job. I want everyone to feel respected. I want everyone to get a good service. And that doesn't mean, you can speak to everyone or give everyone 10 minutes or 15 minutes on the phone, but it's just being respectful. So for me, that's, whoever applies for a job, we're part of the Circle Back initiative, really important to us, the one that Steve Gard runs. So anybody who applies for a job gets a response, it gets a no, thanks, but no thanks as an absolute minimum, because it's just respectful. We want to give great service to clients and candidates and like I said, respectful service. And we want to do everything as ethical as possible. We will make mistakes. There will be candidates that we forget to get back to or don't because we miss something, of course, but we try, it's all about trying to do the right thing. Trying to make recruitment affordable, so trying to make, for us, I'd rather take less money, but more like this model, but more consistent. So I'd like to have long-term relationships where there's guaranteed money coming in, even if that's less money than if we placed, candidates on a contingent basis. And then what that gives companies, I want them to feel like they're getting real value for money for recruitment and a partner that really cares about their business. So, for me, everyone wins in these sort of scenarios. And I've said to these businesses that are going to take it up, look, prices could go up next year. I could do this service and think, actually, look, I've seriously undercut it. I don't think I have. I think for the kind of, headcount restrictions, as in the headcount of the business I put on it. And also, you have a conversation up front, of course, where you talk about, okay, what's your headcount plans for this year? How many new heads? What's your attrition generally over the last 2 years? Maybe 15, 20%. So they've got 50 people, 20% attrition. So that's probably going to be like, maybe 10 roles, and not planning any new heads. So you might think, look, this is going to be between 8 and 12 roles they're going to recruit for. So one a month for $5,000. I think that's, for me, that's absolutely fine from a working perspective. And for them, that's an absolute steal, because the thing is, they might have only gone to agency for 6 of those, but then they would have paid over 60 grand for those. So, they get to then have a stress-free. They're not worrying about having to advertise themselves, go through, even for the sort of more junior roles, have to advertise, go through all the applications, spend their time away from it. And often it's senior people, the hiring manager could be doing this in smaller businesses. So, that's their, what's their hourly wage, and how much time is it taking them away from business? What could they impact within that business over those 6 hours or 7 hours or 8 hours that would have actually made the business profit? So it's not just agency spend, it's time, it's time spent away from their day job. And also, I'm better at recruiting than these hiring managers. It's my profession. I've done it for 20 years. So I'm quicker, I'm more efficient, and I'm better at, at managing a talent acquisition process than a digital marketing manager who's recruiting for a paid media exec or something. I will be better at it. Of course I will. They're going to be better at knowing exactly what they want and making that final decision, of course. But in terms of managing that process, and especially at the early part of that process, from advertising to sourcing, to this to that, I'm going to be better at it. So it's just a win-win all round. I think, honestly, it's an absolute no-brainer. I'm surprised that there would be anyone that would say no to it. The only people that would say no to it are people that either don't believe there's a catch because it's so cheap, or are just so stuck in the mindset of, no, you pay for recruitment when somebody starts in a job. You don't pay a monthly fee. How do what happens if we don't recruit this month? Well, what happens if we recruit 3 people? You look at it over the course of a year, and just look at just need to look historically. What have you spent on agencies over the past 2 or 3 years? How many roles have you recruited for? How much time has that taken away from senior people in the business? Is that worth $5,000 a month? And if it isn't, then that's not for you. But I'd say for 80% of people, it probably would be.
I spoke to a recruiter about 2 months ago, and they were working with a company for years, and they went to pitch like a retainer, and they were reluctant. And then the hiring manager came on and said they'd spent 32 hours interviewing. So what they done was they went away and they calculated their an average salary off what their role was for 32 hours, and then they presented it back to them. And then that was what got them over the line. But it's something that it's a pretty good tactic. It's like, when you take it away from, what are you actually spending on recruitment to what are you actually losing in people's time, and put it to a money figure towards that, it does become, the story comes a lot clearer. But mate, thank you so much for this. I'm going to wrap it up with one last question. So I started this more so for people coming into the industry. The first 2 years, I think it's very hard to get your head around. You've got a phone for 6 months, here you go, make it happen. But the way you spoke a lot about, we started off with more about people maybe starting off in the business, looking at websites and that. If you were to go back to day one from Unrivaled, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I think, and this was actually advice that somebody gave to me. So actually, what I did, what I would recommend people to do is reach out to other recruitment business owners. First of all, I reached out to at least 4 or 5 people that I had seen about LinkedIn and respected, and asked them similar questions. What would you tell yourself? What do you, what's the biggest mistake you made in the first 6 months, 12 months? People will be happy to talk to you, especially if they're not operating in your industry, that they might feel a bit threatened if they're not, although I don't believe in all of that. But I'd say definitely do that. But I think the piece of advice I got from somebody was, don't focus on that kind of month to month or even quarterly, billings or money you're making. Look at it as, more like yearly or even more like a 3-year plan. What do you need the business to do within 3 years and 5 years? Not, God, I've started, I've not made any, I made one placement in the first month, but then the next two, because I think I did that. I think I made like one placement of like 20-25K in the first month, and the next 2 months were looking pretty bare. And I was like, sort of what have I done? But then things really picked up at 3 months when it was massive. Then 2 months were like nothing. It's really up and down, and it will be. And you don't fixate so much on that, I think, when you're in like, if you're working in an agency for somebody else, and you just think, yeah, I just want to hit my targets. I'm still going to get, my base pay and hopefully a bit of commission on this or that. Whereas it feels like very personal when you're doing it for yourself, especially like a one-man band thing, if you're doing that to start with. So I'd say try not to worry about the fluctuations in kind of billings. Look at it as a kind of one year or 2 year or 3 year plan of what you want to hit, because it might be a case that you say, right, over 3 years I want to do this, top of my head, 3 years I want to do a million in 3 years. So that you might, the first year you might sort of just do 200, then the next year you might do 250, but then that third year you could do 550, because sometimes things have to compound and keep going until you kind of start hitting those numbers you want to hit. So yeah, I think be realistic in kind of what you think you're going to do, but also don't kind of limit yourself. I had a bit of that where I thought, oh, you know what, as long as I kind of make the same as I might get paid in an in-house job, that's all I need, because because then I can pay the bills, do what I need to do. But you should have bigger ambitions than that. I think there's so much that you can do. I think when you start working for yourself, it's just the sky's the limit. It really is. I think you get stuck in this kind of mindset when you're working for other people of thinking, oh yeah, I'm on 130, maybe the next job I could get 150. I'm on 150 now, maybe the next job if I'm moving I could get 180, 185. And whereas like working for myself, I could make money working for myself now, creating this agency that I could never get working for somebody else. But then also I get to work how I want to work. I get to do what I want to do, within reason. I get to operate how I want to operate. I only answer to myself. I get to build something. And that's what I want to do. I want to build something, employ people, create something. I want to give people the opportunity to love what they do as well, and working in an environment that that they love. So you just get this kind of motivation, but then it's real up and down. You can really question yourself sometimes, and it can be, I'm sure you've been there, it can be a lonely place, and you can question everything. You can get stressful, and you can think, shit, what do I do if I don't make any money over the next couple of months, or this? I've got a family, I've got this, my wife's on maternity leave, that's unpaid. You're like, shit. But things always, if you keep working, things always tend to work out.
Russell, I really appreciate it. Great chat. I could do this for another 2 hours, I reckon. But thanks for coming on, and looking all forward to seeing the new rebrand.